Morning, y'all. Right, I went and saw Scott Fawcett. He is a golf professional who's kind of changed the way golf is looked at, certainly when it comes to strategy on the course, ideas of how to get the most out of your game. People like Bryson DeChambeau have been to his seminars, lots of tour pros around the world, European Tour and the PGA Tour use his decade system. I went and spent some time with Scott, had a lot of fun. He hosted me and he was a great host. I went to my first NBA game, which was amazing. I had Chick-fil-A for breakfast, chicken burger for breakfast on a brisket. It was nice, a bit strange. I went to the JFK kind of memorial place as well, which was amazing. I had an amazing trip. Let's find out what Scott's about, what Decade's about, and how it could help your game and help you improve your golf. So talk to us about Decade, Scott. What made you start Decade? Because it's not your actual job, is it? As in, it's kind of become a job where you had a real job, didn't you?
Yeah, so I've got a pretty good background in math and poker and, logic, and obviously played professional golf. And so once I kind of realized I could take the data sets from the new strokes gain statistics and all of the launch monitor shot pattern stuff, I could kind of combine it. So it's really just having a 35, 40 year background in math and logic and putting it all together, and then just finally having the data. So it really was quite simple and obvious to me. It's funny because Mark Brody and the other guys that do stats, they really use the data for statistics. And to me, the most obvious use of it was for strategy, like solving the hardest, the mystical part of the game. Yeah,
absolutely. And obviously your golfing background, just tell us a little bit about your golfing background. So you are a professional golfer and you played to a high standard. So that had an influence on you trying to create this system as well, did
Absolutely, yes. I do believe that that's what I do different than the rest of the stats guys, is I have a background as a playing professional. I've played in the US Open, I've played in final stage of Q school and won 10 different times on 72 hole events. So I've got a different way that I interpret and see the data. There's people ask me sometimes if there's anything that Mark Brody and I disagree on, and I'm like, if we do, he's always right mathematically. I'm letting my ability as a player give me a different interpretation of the data and what to see out of it.
Get up. So Decade really is for good players, isn't it? Like your average Joe can't learn from it, can they?
No, it's funny. It was definitely designed for a good player, but as I teach it more and more, like just having any sort of a semblance of a thought of how a professional golfer thinks can't make you worse. And the analogy I've come up with is, like, since I had COVID, I had some blood pressure issues. So I did all kinds of blood pressure work and tests and everything. Now, I'm still not a cardiologist, but I can carry on a better conversation about it. That's really the way I feel Decade is. And again, it's really just about, like, when you finish a round of golf and think I should have shot lower, those are the shots that Decade goes and finds.
Yeah.
That's really the key.
Yeah, let's see how this strike goes, shall we? No.
Yes, it's those pedantic bogeys from 110 where you got a little too aggressive, or a 20-footer you tried to make and you hit it 5 feet by. Like, those are the shots that Decade really helps you find, and everybody has those.
Well, in theory, lesser golfer has more of them, don't they?
Oh, there's no doubt. And again, like, it's so funny because back when I was playing professionally, we used to just every day after every round we'd go to Chili's and we would sit around the bar and talk about all the dumb stuff we did that day.
Yeah.
And then I would never think again about, like, what changes can I make to stop doing that?
Yeah.
Just keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, and that's really what it helps people clean up again. And it doesn't matter if you're a tour player or a 95 shooter, like, we all make those mistakes.
Yeah.
We just ran a test just last week. For 2021, our members, we took the first 3 rounds they entered, and that's their baseline, and then went 120 days in and took the next 3 rounds, and our average user improved by 4.6 shots.
Yeah.
And in the elite portal, the top 25% gained 5.6, which, if you think about, like, those are guys shooting around 77 and 80 already. and they literally, a quarter of them improved by 5 or 6 shots.
It's low-hanging fruit stuff,
It's the
isn't it?
low-hanging fruit, it really is.
Like, the question is, do you want to pick it or not, basically, isn't it?
I mean, pretty much.
Simplest gains for people watching them. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see amateurs make course strategy wise?
One of the stats that we track in the Foundations version is the Tiger 5. So it's these 5 stats that Tiger tracked in the late 90s, early 2000s. How many bogeys on par 5s, how many doubles, 3 putts, blown easy saves, which we changed that to 2 chips, and bogeys with 9 iron or less, which we turn into bogeys from inside 150 and 130 for the girls.
Okay.
Those are really the shots, if you think about it, when you think I should have shot lower.
Yeah.
It's almost always one of those 5 things. So that's what we're trying to really diagnose. So the lowest hanging fruit, as you say,
in there
is one of those 5, almost always.
So for a handicap golfer, that would be a net bogey from inside 150. Would you be classing that as not a gross bogey inside 150?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's actually, I never really honestly thought of it that way, but any sort of just working whatever your net is probably a good place to start. Yeah.
We seem to be playing 5. Scott's done the same, bit short. We've not made it up to the tee, the M3 that we're kind of playing with a bit of a really good shots in there. So I asked Scott over the years, has he seen a difference in the kind of the amount of people using Decade, and at the start, did he get much pushback? You know, people in golf often don't like the new.
I really haven't had much pushback from that standpoint yet. I get some from the golf course architecture people that think they don't really understand everything that goes into the decision-making process, and they'll be like, well, it can't account for that. And I'm like, it can, you need to understand how, but I haven't really had anyone just act like, well, there's no way this works, or there's no way it's correct. Like, for the most part, people kind of see it and they're like, yeah, I get it. And honestly, if anything, a lot, more people than I think should say, like, it's all common sense. And I'm like, that I actually do agree with once you see it.
I see that comment. I see people saying, well, this is just common sense, isn't it? And I would say it is common sense, but it also isn't. We've all played with golfers, and certainly normal golfers who are watching this video, and they are making some very uncommon sense based, emotional based ideas out, or decisions out on the golf course.
That's it exactly. I mean, so like, yeah, I agree. Once you see it and you understand it, yes, it's common sense. But even still, it's impossible to remove the emotion and actually implement it. Like, 2 + 2 is common sense, and it's pretty much impossible to say, like, 2 + 2 is 5. Like, this is all very straightforward and common sense, but still nobody does it, all the way to tour players. I mean, again, Keith Mitchell has won on the PGA Tour. He's one of the best players on the planet. And some of the stuff I had to show him this year, the week before the CJ Cup, it's crazy to me that, like, you've won on tour and you're this far off base with how you think about a few things.
Yeah.
And again, like, if that guy had missed 7 of his prior 11 cuts, we just talk on the phone for 2 hours, and he finishes 3rd that week. And again, sure, it might be anecdotal, it might be a coincidence, but I have that same coincidence happen so often, it's crazy in my opinion.
And my last question for Scott was, just explain Decade in the simplest way you can for everyone watching this video to understand exactly what the product's all about.
If I had to create, I mean, it's just a math-based strategy system. If I had to boil it down, and again, it's funny because I've boiled 20 years of golf IQ down into 6 hours of tutorial content. I get people all the time like, hey, I just bought it, got a tournament tomorrow, can you boil it down even more? Yes, super aggressive off the tee, mildly conservative into the greens, and be a good lag putter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, obviously there's more to it than that, and the only reason there is more to it than that is number 18 green at St. Andrews is 52 yards wide. 10 green at Pebble Beach is 17 yards wide. You can't just say middle of the green or get more aggressive here, because golf is the only sport that's not played on a uniform field of competition. That's what makes golf great, different, impossible to teach, just everything. It really is. Again, my basketball analogy is, if I was at the, told you I was playing last night, I was at the top of the key, the guard switched to me, I did a turnaround fadeaway, you kind of know what I'm talking about if you know anything about basketball.
Yeah.
But if I tell you I was 147 in the middle of one fairway, should I aim at the pin or not? Like, you have no idea what that means. You have so much you've got to describe, which is why I do believe the traditional playing lesson doesn't really work very well. Because, like where we were playing today, if those people that were getting that playing lesson were now to go out and play in a golf tournament, well, are the greens big? Are they small? there's just way too much that goes into every single decision
Yeah.
that's unique to that exact shot.
So in effect then Decade is allowing people to make more calculated decisions around the situations they're in, rather than maybe applying one situation to every situation. Middle of the green, well, that's just not going to, isn't, when the water's at the front, you might be not wanting to go at the middle of the green kind of idea.
Well, exactly. I mean, again, this is where, like, I do think that there's just so much that goes into any given decision. And if you'd asked me again 6 years ago, what is so great? Why are these young players playing so well? Because of or with Decade, I would have said it's all the math, it's all the strategy. But honestly, in hindsight, it's just giving players a very structured way to work through the different inputs to make a good decision. It's giving them an organized flow to make decisions, and that's really. Bad decisions come from not knowing what you're even analyzing, or then letting emotion make your decision.
Emotion, obviously, in golf just often is the one that's taking over, isn't it?
That's it, exactly.
Here we go. It was a great trip, and thanks to Scott for hosting me so well. It was really interesting to spend some time with Scott and learn from him, and I think you can got so much to learn about your game out here on the course. More than we've ever really given enough credit for as coaches, and I'm thankful for someone like Scott who's coming along and shaking that area up. If you want to check Scott out, I'll link his social channels down below, and if you want to improve your strategy and get a better understanding, check out Decade as well, and just do start collecting some numbers, because it can transform your game. Oh, please transform my game. I want it to. Nice, isn't it, to transform your game?